Is Donald Trump about to kill CNN?
Mr. Reagan.
Now, Bank of America has just lowered its 2022 forecast for the S&P 500 by a whopping 900 points to 3,600, saying that we are headed for a recession this year. Shocker, I know. It said the new year-end target is the lowest on the street. This is not good news for those of you stuck in equities or anything tied to the stock market. Thousands of people have put their trust in Noble Gold to prevent losing money in the financial storm that is brewing, and you can join them by calling their expert team. Noble Gold was recently voted the #1 gold company in the country by Consumer Affairs. There's no call centers, no scripted response, no bull, just a straight, honest run-through of your options so that you can decide. And by the way, they're giving away this beautiful gold 1/10 ounce American Eagle proof coin with every qualifying IRA or 401k rollover this month. You cannot go wrong with Noble Gold. Call the team now at 877-646-5347 to find out more or visit noblegoldinvestments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. This is beautiful. This is wonderful.
This is CNN.
I actually learned this news from the great Dinesh D'Souza. He's put out a great video on this with some personal insight as he is friends with Donald Trump.
Donald Trump is filing lawsuits against major media corporations, starting with CNN. The CNN lawsuit is sort of underway.
Essentially, Donald Trump is suing CNN, MSNBC, and various other news agencies for intentionally lying about him. And how are they lying? Well, they're lying by saying he's lying when they know it isn't true. Basically, Trump has always claimed that the 2020 election was not honest and it was not fair, that there was fraud or corruption or some kind of shenanigans that got Biden the historic 81 million votes, the most votes of any president in history. Donald Trump has always maintained that this election rigging allowed Biden to win the presidency through crooked means.
This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election. If you count the legal votes, I easily win. If you count the illegal votes, they can try to steal the election from us. This election was stolen from you, from me, and from the country.
Of course, leftist news agencies have always dismissed these accusations as false and unfounded, which I totally agree with. YouTube, please don't censor this video. But here's the thing. News organizations actually went a lot further than just saying that Trump was wrong. Politicians and so-called journalists have consistently claimed that Trump's assertions of fraud in the 2020 election is a, quote, big lie. But they don't know that. A lie is something that is said in order to mislead people. A lie is intentionally misleading. It's not just a mistake. It's not just being wrong. You have to believe one thing and then say something else in order to mislead people. So Trump is only lying about election fraud in the 2020 election if he knows for certain that the 2020 election was totally legitimate, that Biden did not win the election because of fraud. That is the only case in which Trump can be accurately characterized as lying about the 2020 election. If Trump genuinely believes that the 2020 election was stolen, that there was fraud, well, then he's not lying. He might be wrong, but he's not lying. And so in order to report that Trump is lying, these politicians and these news organizations, these news companies, they must be genuinely convinced that Trump, in fact, believes that the elections were fair and honest and that he's lying to the public about that. But they have no evidence to support this perception of Trump. In fact, they have every reason to believe that he's being honest.
Jason Miller testimony shows that the data analytics guru told Donald Trump, "You have lost." Now, Jason Miller did add some important context afterwards. He said, the next thing I said, which you did not see, is that Donald Trump said to the data guy, well, I disagree with you. That's why intent can get a little bit complex.
Trump has made his 2020 fraud case many times, and he's always said the same thing. He always clearly states that he believes the election was stolen. There is no instance in which Trump has been, say, caught on tape saying that, well, I know that actually the election wasn't stolen, but I want my supporters to think that it's stolen. He's never been recorded saying anything remotely like that. And so the news media has no reason to believe that Trump is lying. Their claim that he's lying is entirely invented. Now, one could claim that these politicians and so-called journalists are speculating, and speculation is fine, except these news agencies have played Trump's own words on their network. They've broadcast Trump's own words, so they are clearly aware of what Trump says he thinks. And to speculate that he's lying, well, they would have to have some evidence, some reason, some hint that this might be true, and they don't have anything. Now, the speculation argument is something of a judgment call, but I think that the weight of evidence is massively on Trump's side here. And here's the bigger problem for them. They don't characterize their assertions of Trump as speculation. They always state it as fact.
We're going to take a look into the anatomy of the big lie, how it began and how it spread.
See, Trump is still pushing the big lie that he somehow was cheated out of the 2020 election.
Former President Trump's big lie continues to dominate headlines.
Last November, he started telling the big lie that he won.
The riot at the Capitol on January 6th, and that you say was, it was organized on behalf of the big lie.
At the core of all this, at the core of what we're talking about on January 6th is this big lie.
Now, I would actually submit here that every time they called Trump's claims the big lie, if they said, we're speculating about Trump lying here, if they said that, they would actually probably get away with calling it a big lie. But as they've never presented the big lie with that caveat in any of their reporting, as far as I'm aware, I think Trump is going to win these cases easily. But, my opinion doesn't mean all that much. I'm not a lawyer. I have no idea how these things tend to go. I'm just using reason and common sense. I actually find it rather ironic that by calling Trump's claims about election fraud the big lie, the media is in fact perpetrating a big lie. And it's worse than that because it's somewhat coordinated, which is the definition of a conspiracy. This is a conspiratorial deception of the American people perpetrated by the Democrat politicians and the mainstream media. And because it's so difficult to prove intention in a defamation suit, they all thought that they would get away with it without any consequences. In a just world, news agencies would not be permitted to intentionally mislead the public about the views of a political candidate in this way. But sadly, we do not live in a just world, and they often get away with just that. On the contrary, I'm not even allowed to express my views about the validity of the 2020 election because I'm not actually protected from the censorship of YouTube in the same way a newspaper or a news network would be protected from the censorship of the federal government. What I'm saying is that the whole system is extremely unfair. One might even call it rigged. Rigged in favor of leftist political propaganda. And unfortunately, the way laws are today, there is no changing that. We just have to suffer, bogged down in this mire of propaganda and corruption. Except now, Trump has figured out, or his lawyers have figured out, that this propaganda is so clearly made up that they can actually sue these news agencies. Now, I want to express to you guys the importance of this lawsuit. This is huge. I never actually thought about this in terms of litigation, and I am thrilled that Trump's lawyers did. I mean, that's their job, so I guess I shouldn't be too surprised about it. But it's so great to see this because this will literally stop the press from lying about Trump, at least in this one way. And more importantly, it'll absolutely kill the January 6th committee's efforts to stop Trump from running again in 2024, which is, of course, their actual goal. And this is a really unique opportunity because, I'm not a legal expert, but just logically I can see that they have a good case. Ordinarily, it's almost impossible to win a defamation case like this because you have to prove intent. You basically need a private email that spells out, I know Trump genuinely believes that the 2020 election was stolen, but I'm going to report the opposite, that he knows that it's fair and honest and that he's lying in order to incite his supporters to insurrection. Usually to win this kind of case, you would need that level of evidence. However, in this case, I understand why they think they actually don't need that. And so, as I said before, I'm no lawyer, but as far as I can tell, given a fair hearing, I think Trump will win these cases. And if he does win, I hope he makes hundreds of millions of dollars from this, because that's just a small fraction of the damage that CNN and all the other news agencies have done to Donald Trump. And this is what I meant with my clickbaity thumbnail, because hundreds of millions or even billions would, I think, be a fair penalty in this case, because Trump is the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar brand, and that brand was massively damaged by CNN's lies. And CNN is a multi-billion-dollar company, and so they can reasonably, I think, right? Aren't they multi-billion? Maybe there are hundreds of millions of dollars. It doesn't matter. Point is, they have tons and tons of money. So they can reasonably pay Trump the actual balance owed for such damages. But here's the thing. CNN has already become a financial loser. Since CNN turned from being a left-wing news agency into an anti-Trump propaganda platform, they essentially destroyed their own credibility. No one has watched CNN for actual news in at least 6 years. The only reason anyone watched CNN between 2016 and 2020 was to hear about how evil President Donald Trump was. So when Trump left office in 2020, there was literally no reason to watch CNN. So CNN has already nearly killed itself off by becoming the anti-Trump network, and they're not making any money anymore. So if Trump is able to win this kind of lawsuit in a massive way, I think it's very possible that CNN might have to file for bankruptcy. And would that not be just the sweetest revenge of all? Trump is, of course, suing lots of news agencies, but I think the rest of them are too robust to be entirely destroyed. But CNN is already on death's door, so I think this could happen. Trump kills CNN. I would absolutely love to see that headline. Well, that's it for me. And remember, it's not that Liberal friends are ignorant. It's just they know so much. That is not so. Good night.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars. And it's been said if we lose that war, and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours, history will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening.